Okay, in this video we are introducing the 4MS Ensemble Oscillator. Just a brief overview about some functions. The good thing about it is possible to generate chords within the Eurorack without using different triggers or notes, because the Ensemble Oscillator creates its sounds with 16 oscillators, and it's really interesting to see the concept because it's about harmonics and overtones. So if you build up a major chord, you may build it up from overtones, but you may also play notes on the piano, and somehow there is no difference between that if the overtones match the tones you play. So in my opinion, sound design is always a part of composing. If you design a certain sound, then you will play differently with it. And that's what Matthias Pürch, I think, is trying to show with this module. Let's see what it does. It has 16 oscillators, and I'm now spreading those. And then have some weird bass sounds. But if I turn down the cross FM and just spread the notes, they come from a scale. I use a little bit of detuning, and I can determine a balance between the deeper and the higher notes. And if I turn the root note, this is not necessarily the root tone, but the deepest tone of all of them. So the changes happen diatonically within the scale. I can, however, change the scale with the scale button. And there are 30 scales within 3 banks, and the first bank uses normal 12 tet scales, and the second bank uses some that repeat after each octave, and the third bank can be tuned totally free, and you can tune your own scales in all of these 3 banks. So but now let's just see what this one scale does. Basically it's a quantizing, so the oscillators get pitched and the scale quantizes this. And root is a little bit misleading in my opinion, because it's not the root note, it's just the deepest note of the chord. However, if I want to detune the whole thing, then I can use the pitch knob. So if I'm now using a sequencer to trigger a root, then different chord versions will be played within the same scale. However, if let's turn it down, if I modulate pitch, then the result, the outcome is really different. So that's the principle how this works, and there are lots of extras. I'm now listening through it through multigrain, and multigrain gives me a little bit of reverb, but there's also a lot of sound design. There are lots of sound design possibilities in the module with twist and with warp. So you have 3 modes for warp, and you have 3 modes for twist, and then you also have cross FM, which makes things really different. Of course, the more oscillators you use, the more heavy this is gonna sound. And then this freeze function also has a shift function. So if I turn it, if I hit it, or keep holding it, and then use this, then I can choose how many oscillators are playing. So I had lots of oscillators playing, but if I turn it down, then I'm down to 1 oscillator. And now this is flickering, because this setting is now not necessarily the setting of the spread button anymore, so I have to turn it up again, then it stops flashing. Now it doesn't make a difference because I only have 1 oscillator at the moment. I go back to 16, and I have to reach the value until there is a change. And the same is the case now here. So once I hit the original value, then it stops flickering. So there are some other modes here, for example stereo mode makes a difference where the oscillators come out. You will maybe hear that in the stereo image. Let's get back to some basics here. I am now turning the volume up, and this sound sounds a little bit like a unison sound. Of course, because of detune. Everything sounds better with detune, in my opinion, in the 4MS oscillator, but also because of spread. So if I have a scale which has little differences between the single tones, then spread causes some kind of unison. Let's go up, turn down detune, turn detune up again. So that's something you can do with weird scales in Bank 3. But let's go through other scales again. Let's take the simple scale again. Turn down everything to the left. And then you can see that if you move root, you move through the tones of the scale. And now let's take a different scale with microtonal stuff inside. Sounds a bit more weird. And if you turn up spread and balance, some kind of chord shows up. So if balance is in the middle, you get this, and with or without detune makes a big difference. So let's take another one. Yeah, I like these sound adventures. Okay, now I do something different. I'm connecting the bloom sequencer with the root node. And I can also use the freeze function to freeze the lowest tone. And now you can hear that lowest tone is frozen, but this is only referring to the moment when I freeze. So I could, in theory, also go further down afterwards with root, but you can hear this one tone is frozen and keeps being frozen until I release. Now there's only this tone frozen. And I can choose a mode down here. Right now I'm saving the lowest, but I can also use different options. Okay, I'm trying to show the learn mode. I'm entering that last scale, which I don't find that much interesting, and then I hit learn, and now hold learn and turn the knob. So now I've learned a tone from the scale, which I can now also fine-tune by holding learn and adjusting it. And now I can learn another tone by holding learn and adding this, and then this, and then this, and then another one, and that's my scale. And now if I want to keep this, tap it again. So let's see. Yeah, it's a bit weird, I know, but you can also do this with tones that are quantized in the usual 12-tet arrangement. Pitch didn't react at first because it was in a different position before. You can see this is still flickering. I have two tones which are really close by each other, so there's this little swinging that can be heard. And fine-tune can also be used when I'm not in learn mode. And this is just based on sine waves. I can now add more overtones, but not sure if this helps. So just by ear, some interesting things can happen. Yeah, and I'm wondering if I should set up a Patreon and make the sounds available there.